Today, I followed the morning routine of a genteel Victorian lady in London in the final decades of the 19th century. My day began at around 7:30. Well-off Victorian women would have awoken to find the fires roaring, their clothes prepared and laid out for them, and their shutters already opened, thanks to the maids. I was in no hurry to get out of bed, so like many Victorian women, I started my day with a perfect cup of tea. I drank this in bed whilst I luxuriated amongst the soft cotton sheets. Victorian bed sheets were usually white and made from cotton or linen, and then a patchwork quilt might have been pulled up over the top for extra warmth. My sheets come from the sponsor of today's video, Brooklinen. High quality bed sheets can be incredibly expensive, but Brooklinen cuts out the middleman to give you all of that quality and comfort as would befit a genteel Victorian lady, but for a very affordable cost. Brooklinen was founded on the principle that people deserve beautiful home essentials without the luxury markup. Brooklinen is offering my viewers a special discount of $20 off any order over $100. Just click the link below and use the code Serena. Brooklinen bedding sets cost $200 to $250, but comparable sheets cost about $500, so it's a huge saving. You could get 2 bedding sets for that amount. There are over 20 different colours and patterns that you can mix and match, but mine are in a classic Victorian white. I went for Brooklinen's Luxe Hardcore Sheet Bundle. This is really the ultimate bedding upgrade. Purchasing all of your bedding in a bundle gives you an extra 25% saving, and you get everything that you need, from your sheets to your pillowcases to your duvet cover. The sheets are so luxurious. They're made from an incredibly high quality 480 thread count cotton, which sets my textile historian heart singing. They are so warm and buttery soft and timelessly elegant. You can shop for your Brooklinen sheets from the comfort of your own bed via their website and build your own bundle. I slept in these sheets last night and can confirm they were truly glorious. I genuinely don't think I've ever woken up feeling so luxurious. Alas, there is only so long that a lady can lay abed, even in such lovely sheets, so I had to get up and start my day. Victorian medical advice was to sleep with the window ajar to allow for good ventilation and encourage healthy breathing. But in the depths of an English January, that is not something that I wanted to do. So instead, I followed alternative guidelines to leave a pitcher of water in the room to absorb all of the respired gases and leave the air pure. I cannot say that I noticed any difference. My next task was washing, because of course the Victorians washed every day. The stand-up wash with a jug and basin was the main way that Victorian women kept themselves clean. It was the very first task of the day, and you would have stayed dressed in your long nightgown while you washed. There is a fantastic scene in Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre when Jane is at Lowood School and the water for washing in the morning had iced over, and I felt so much sympathy for that on this January morning. Luckily, I had warm water to wash in, and genteel Victorian ladies would have had that privilege of having servants heat and fetch the water. The poor servants, of course, would have had to make do with the icy cold water. Victorians had soap, which could be made at home or bought commercially. I used a bar of Pears soap, which was first sold in London in 1807 and was a hugely popular soap brand in the late 19th century. I really thought that this was such an incredibly eco-friendly, water-saving way to wash. One jug very easily cleaned my entire body. So the method was that you simply pour a little water in the bowl, dip a flannel in the water, rub on some of your soap, and wash one part of your body at a time. Once you'd used all of the water in the jug, your ablutions were complete. Once clean, Victorian women might use a dusting of powder, which acted similarly to deodorant. These powders absorbed sweat and were, like soap, another really big commercial boom of the 19th century. Once my body was clean, it was time to get out of my nightwear and into something a little bit more becoming for a Victorian lady as she goes about her morning tasks. I put on my wrapper or tea gown. This was a loose-fitting, comfortable garment that could be worn with or without corsets, and the waist was adjustable to size with a belt. A little bit more decent for going about my remaining morning tasks. Now, there were 3 more hygiene tasks before I could leave the dressing room. First, dental hygiene. Toothbrushes looked kind of like their modern equivalents really, although the bristles were usually made with horse or pony hair. Dentifrice, which was the Victorian word for toothpaste, was often made at home from things like soot, chalk, and cuttlefish bone. But by the end of the 19th century, toothpaste was coming onto the market and was available to buy. Colgate started selling dental products in 1873, but they had lots of other competitors at the time. Next, my hands. Hands were incredibly important for wealthy Victorian women. They were a site of pride, a place where you could show that you did not engage in labour. While your maid might have hands reddened from cold water and scrubbing, a lady spent time ensuring her hands looked as unused as possible. Manicure sets were incredibly important toolkits for maintaining women's hands. A lady would first soak her fingers in warm water to soften them. Then file them to the perfect oval, not too long to get in the way when doing needlework or playing the piano or harp, and not too short to look unsightly or broken. You would also use the file to smooth the ridges on the face of the nail before using a buffer for 5 minutes to bring out their shine. Finally, a little hand cream was used. Although some ladies suggested rubbing your nails in your scalp to make use of the natural hair oils. And finally, my hair. Hair was tied up at night, usually into a plait, to keep it neat and clean. Hair was more frequently washed by the Victorians, and there are a whole array of often egg-based ideas about how to keep it clean and strong. The rosemary wash was also quite popular, and it was simply performed with a jug and bowl using water steeped in rosemary. This morning was a little bit too cold for hair washing, so instead I simply brushed it out. My hairbrush is an antique that's silver-backed and has horsehair bristles, and it makes such a big difference to my hair. Once it was brushed into a frizz, it could be smoothed again using pomades made from ingredients like gum tragacanth. Once fully cleaned, clothed and preened, a Victorian lady might stay in her morning attire a little longer as she ate breakfast, caught up on her correspondence, met with her maids or housekeeper, read or practiced music. So this experience was a gloriously slow way to awake, be mindful of my body and take care of myself before I approach the day. And while it would be lovely to take away that the Victorians had it right, we must remember that this morning routine was only enabled because of the vast amounts of labour undertaken by a maidservant and a class structure that supported that. But taking this time to be slow is wonderful for self-care, and luxuriating in my new Brooklinen sheets was a real treat. So remember to make use of Brooklinen's special discount of $20 off any order over $100. Just click the link below and use the code Serenity. Perhaps I should try a nighttime routine next. What do you think?